Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is Matt from Movies and Mischief with Matt-n-Katy, but this is another solo review. Although this one isn't really a review, this is just more me talking about a movie that I didn't realize I loved as much as I do. Every now and then, I come across films that I know I've seen in the past, but maybe I don't remember a lot about them, or maybe I just want to watch them again just to kind of capture that nostalgia of watching horror films in the dark by myself when I was a kid. And this is one that popped up on Shudder. It was actually, I watched it as part of the Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In Season 3, which I'm finally able to get around to watching. And it's the 1982 classic, Class of 1984. This is a film that I've seen a couple times, but like I said, I didn't realize how much I liked it until I watched it again. Now, granted, I think a lot of my newfound interest in the film developed from listening to Joe Bob talk about a lot of the production and some of the people that were involved in it. But it's also just a really good flick, and I don't think it gets the kind of attention it should get, at least outside of the 80s B-movie action slash horror slash thriller community that's out there. So what I wanted to do tonight is just talk to you guys a little bit about Class of 1984. Maybe it'll convince you to give it another chance if you've seen it before. Maybe you've never seen it and you want to give it a shot. Do that. So let's talk about Class of 1984.
Class of 1984.
All right, so let me kick this off by giving you guys a little bit of background on the film Class of 1984. So it was written by Tom Holland, not that Tom Holland. It was written by Tom Holland, and he came up with the whole idea of this story after he had done some research on inner city violence within high schools, or violence in inner city high schools. And that's where the whole idea for this story came to him from. It was directed by Mark Lester. Now, Mark Lester is better known for, he was the director of Commando. You may have heard of that, Arnold Schwarzenegger flick. He also directed Firestarter. He also directed my all-time favorite John Candy and Eugene Levy team-up film, Armed and Dangerous. And he also did a little-known and highly underappreciated Pterodactyl. If you haven't had a chance to see that one, it's definitely worth the view. The film stars Perry King, Timothy Van Patten, Roddy McDowall, who I'm going to talk about in a bit, and a very young Michael J. Fox. I'm pretty sure if this wasn't his first work, it was definitely some of his early work. And he is sporting a bowl cut like I've never seen before. Good on you, Michael J. Fox, for getting on camera with that hairdo. The score, which I'm also going to talk about today, was written and performed by Lalo Schifrin. And it also has a horrible song by one of my favorite artists, Alice Cooper. Oh, Alice Cooper, this was not the song for you. So the whole story revolves around Perry King's character, Mr. Norris. Him and his wife have just moved to the city from Nebraska, and he has taken a new job at this high school as the music teacher. He quickly becomes friends with Roddy McDowall's character, Mr. Corrigan, who tells him that things are not good at Lincoln High School. And there is this group, this gang of punk rock kids that basically run roughshod over the school. Mr. Norris clashes with the leader of this gang, played by Timothy Van Patten, and all hell breaks loose. So let me start out by talking about what I really liked about this. I have a new appreciation for this film. I've seen it before. I couldn't tell you the last time I'd watched this movie, but I know I've seen it before, and I can tell you that because as I was watching it, I got little flashes of memory from scenes or things I saw in the movie. But I don't think I enjoyed it then as much as I did watching it again tonight. Now, I will say that some of this newfound appreciation definitely came from watching it with Joe Bob Briggs and having him talk about the film. If you've never watched Joe Bob Briggs before, the man is a treasure trove of production, behind the scenes, off camera cast. He just has all the information there is about movies. So listening to him talk about this film, I think it definitely helped grow my appreciation for it. But aside from that, it's just a really good movie. It's a really good put together film. The acting in this film is actually really good. Perry King, Timothy Van Patten, Roddy McDowall, of course, all of the side characters, everybody did a good job of getting you invested in these characters, whether it was the protagonists or the antagonists. Perry King was great as Mr. Norris, as the teacher. I found myself rooting for him from very early on in this film. There are a couple times when his character does things that you're like, what the hell are you doing? Man, you're just playing into what the gang wants you to do. But that's a testament to his performance. He gets you into the character. He gets you into what's going on. Timothy Van Patten as Stegman, the leader of the leader of this gang, he does a really good job as well. He's very believable. Now, whether or not he really looks like a high school age punk rock kid, no, none of them do. But again, it's the 80s, right? But he did a good job at making me hate him and making me root for Mr. Norris throughout the film. Roddy McDowall. Let's talk about Roddy McDowall. Was there ever a film this man did not give 100%? He is so good in this film. There is a scene particular, without giving anything away, where his character has just kind of reached the end of his rope, and he goes to the extreme to kind of get back at the kids. And it is a really, really good scene. And I was just not expecting it, right? Which I should have, because it's Roddy McDowall. Like I said, the man never did not give 100% to whatever he was doing. But I wasn't expecting it, that level of emotion and range in a film like this. So it really caught me by surprise in a good way. The other thing I really enjoyed about this film is just the way the director put you in the film. And he does this with some of the camera angles he used. I think he did this with a lot of the score, a lot of post-production work, the scoring of the film, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But a lot of it, I think, was just his getting the actors' performance, getting the performance out of the actors that he needed to kind of put you in the film. One scene in particular I want to talk about, and keep in mind when I'm talking to you about this, this film came out in 1982. Okay, remember that. So there's a particular scene early on in the film, where we kind of see the gang in their element. They're at a music club, they're seeing one of their favorite bands play, they're in the mosh pit, they're drinking, they're blah, blah, blah. And then we follow them down this dark hallway to the back of this club where we see this is where they conduct their business. And in this room, they're giving out drugs to all the other kids. In steps Shelley, and she wants drugs, but along with wanting drugs, she wants to work for the gang. And working for the gang is prostitution. Okay, so now we have a group of high school kids that are, not only are they selling drugs to other kids, but now they have a prostitution ring using high school kids going on too, right? So that puts a whole nother uncomfortable level on this scene. So this gang has one lone female member, Patsy, who was just awesome. The actress who played her did such a good job. And she wants this girl to get naked in front of everybody. She wants to watch this girl get naked. So she tells Stegman, the leader, tell her to get naked. Stegman tells her to get naked. So what we see now is this very uncomfortable scene of this supposedly 15, 16-year-old girl. Granted, she wasn't 15 or 16. This is the 80s, so the actress was probably in her 30s, but whatever. You see where I'm going with this. And she's getting undressed in front of all these people. Well, then the leader of the group says, okay, guys, let's test her out. Take her out back and test her out. So now there's a group of guys taking this poor girl to test her out. And all of a sudden, the Patsy character says, wait, I want to watch. And she gets up and runs off. And then we're left with seeing Stegman smiling and, twirling his little switchblade knife. Man, the whole scene was just so good. From the acting, the writing, the camera. There was no music. I mean, well, there was music. All you could hear was the music going on the dance floor. But it was just so well done and so uncomfortable and so skeevy. And that's the moment in the film where you get on Mr. Norris's side, where you're like, okay, these kids are bad. They're not just a bunch of spoiled white kids acting up in school. These kids are bad. And it was such a good scene. Very uncomfortable to watch. And it kind of plays into something I'm going to talk about a little bit later about what I didn't like the film. But kudos to Mark Lester and the performances in that specific scene, because I don't think the movie would have worked as well as it did if that scene didn't have the kind of impact that it had early on in the film. So now let's talk about what I didn't like. The costumes, some of the makeup was not convincing, especially with the punk rock kids. There was just something off. They didn't look like punk rock kids to me. They looked like, if you can imagine, they looked like if someone was dressing up as a punk rocker from the 80s on Halloween. That's what it looked like to me. With the exception of the Patsy character, like I said, the lone female member of the gang. Whoever designed her costume and makeup did a bang-up job, because she looked the part. And that probably had something to do with her performance, I would say. Her performance was just a little more believable than the rest of the actors. The other thing that kind of I didn't like was there is a rape scene in the film, later on in the film, that was a little too long. I'm not a fan of rape scenes at all in movies, but I do understand that sometimes they are necessary to tell the story that you're telling. This one, I didn't feel like it was necessary to see as much as we saw. I think that it lasted too long, and there was just too much there. I think that it would have been more effective if we heard more of what was happening than what we actually saw. And that ties into the scene I described to you guys a little bit earlier, with having the Sally character undress in front of all these people. I understand where they were going with it. It makes you uncomfortable. It kind of sets up just how bad these kids are. But I felt like it lasted a little longer than it needed to. And when I say nudity, this is full-on nudity, full frontal nudity. This is not just your typical 1980s booby shots. No, this is full-on nudity in both of these scenes. So I would warn people against that. The other thing that bothered me was the high school that this all took place in is huge, like unbelievably huge. I feel like they filmed this in several different locations and just didn't do a good job of editing it together, because the last 10-15 minutes of the film, the final confrontation, there's like this albeit tense cat and mouse game going on throughout the hallways of the school between the gang and Mr. Norris. But it's just so big. I mean, apparently this high school has this huge gymnasium, this huge auditorium. There's this huge shop class that opens up onto a garage for automotive class. It was just too much. And I found myself saying this out loud as I was watching them run through these hallways, like, geez, how big is this school? I've never seen a high school that big before. Did they film this on a college campus? I don't even think there's a college campus buildings that would be that big. So that was a bit of a problem for me. It kind of took me out. And then the final confrontation between Mr. Norris and Stegman, the leader of the band, the leader of the gang, it was a little underwhelming. It was really just a lot of the two of them rolling around on the roof of this high school, and then a couple punches and boom, roll credits. I was just like, what? They did such a good job of building up to this moment between these two, and then it just felt like a bit of a letdown with the actual confrontation. So I would have liked something a little bit more. The only other thing I want to talk about, as I said earlier, is the score. Lalo Schifrin did an amazing job on this score, and he did something that I'm pretty sure he did on the Amityville Horror soundtrack as well, is he used a lot of sound, just like natural sound. There's a specific scene that I'm thinking about where I'm pretty sure I heard what sounded like, if you can imagine, a steel pipe running across concrete just underneath the music. There's another scene where there was like an extended sound of broken glass, again, just under the music, that added a certain level of tension to the scenes that those were in. Early on in the film, when you're still getting to know Mr. Norris and his wife, and there's this nice scene where he's telling her about his first day at school, and he's a little concerned with these punk rock kids, and the music is playing, the score is playing, but it's playing in a way where it doesn't sound like a typical score does overlaid on the film. It almost sounds like you're hearing the music that's playing in the room as these two are having this conversation, which really puts you in the scene and kind of makes you a part of what this conversation they're having, which in turn helps you to kind of grow more attached to Mr. Norris and his situation with his wife. I really like that. That was a nice touch. I don't know if that had something to do with the scoring or if it was something that came about in the editing and post-production. Whatever it was, whoever was behind it, it worked really well for me, and kudos to whoever put that in there. So, final thoughts. I have a new appreciation for Class of 1984. I've already added it to my list of films I want to find on Blu-ray. I just think this is a great film. I think it's a film, not everybody should watch, obviously. Some people aren't going to be into it, but I have a whole new appreciation for this movie. On that note, I'm going to let you guys go. Thanks for checking in and watching and listening to me rant on and on about this movie. Katie and I have a new review that'll be going live Wednesday. We watched a movie over the weekend that we're going to talk to you guys about. And then I'm sure we'll have something else coming up over the weekend. So as usual, please like, subscribe to our channel, comment if there's anything out there you guys would like to get our opinions on, or just my opinion on. Either way, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And on that note, I'm going to tell you all, say good night. Have a good week.